Well, hello, everybody. Yes, I know, virtual once again. I know. I'll be there in person someday. But for now, I'm going to present virtual. So get yourself a nice cup of tea or a strong whiskey and enjoy this from the comfort of your own home or wherever we are, right? I'm going to present to you about Killarney and the French River. So my very first book 30 years ago, more than 30 years ago, was on Killarney Provincial Park. Love it. And it was more of a coffee style book with a history of the place and stuff like that. At the end, there was some information about where to go hiking and where to go paddling. So then later on in life, I actually put a book out called A Paddler's Guide to Killarney and the French River. And now I've got the second edition out, or hope to be out, and think it's going to be out. Yes, it'll be out this spring. And yeah, so it's just an updated version of the other book. Added information, changed information, more routes, that sort of thing. So where is Killarney and the French River, and why are we doing both? Well, let me show you. If you look here, we got about 5.5 hours north of Toronto driving time, and we've got Killarney Provincial Park, which is actually a wilderness park, actually. It's the smallest wilderness park we have in Ontario, but it is a wilderness park. And it's actually the northeast corner of Georgian Bay. And just east of that is the French River. So the French River flows in from Lake Nipissing all the way down to Georgian Bay. Those two parks are actually monitored by the same superintendent. So those are kind of, it's the same park, even though they're totally different areas and totally different landscapes. But yeah, the superintendent of Killarney Provincial Park also manages the French River. So also, they're two really good places. So why not do them both? Why not? All right. So we're going to start off with Killarney Provincial Park. Absolutely love it.
There's no other place like this. The vistas are amazing. These mountain ranges are older than the Rockies. They're not as big as the Rockies, obviously, but they're older. It's all quartz. The water's all turquoise blue. The blueberries are phenomenal as well. But the vistas and the wilderness solitude is amazing. If you've never been here, you've got to give it a try. If you have been here, you know what I'm talking about.
Killarney's fantastic. This is our first time here, and hopefully not our last time.
This is my first time coming to Killarney, and when we landed at George Lake, I was just mesmerized by the water.
Been all over the world, and it's just the canoeing here, the atmosphere. It's like, you know, nowhere else in the world. So
it's awesome. Can you see behind me?
It's a very peaceful place. We find it a lot better than any of the other parks that we've been to in Ontario. We've been to a number of them, and this is our favorite at this point. So
the people who come here, the things you see, and just like the environment around you, it's amazing, and I just love it.
It re-energizes you, it charges your mental thought process, it charges your physical energy, and you have a good family fun where the family is not stuck with the TV screens and all those stuff.
And it seems to be so virgin. You know, it hasn't been spoiled at all. I like it, yes.
I think Killarney Provincial Park is unlike any other place in the province. It's a true diversity of landscapes.
I wish I could bottle it. I wish you can put "Ode to Killarney" somewhere.
It's definitely going to be an experience in your life that you're going to want, and it might even change it a bit.
It's like Hotel California. Once you check in, you can't check out.
Killarney Provincial Park. There I am as a young lad. That tree is still there. I think everybody that's gone to Killarney has touched that tree. But yes, that was a young Kevin Callan. All right, I'm going to start off with some routes, okay? First place, Osa Lake, okay? This is where the park started. It's the centerpiece of the park. It stands for Ontario Society of Artists. And yeah, there's a big story about that and how that became a park.
Got Killarney Lake and Osa Lake. Osa Lake used to be called Trout Lake. I think it was called Trout Lake back at the time, or Killarney Lake. I'm not too sure. I do know the history of the park started in this area. A.Y. Jackson, one of the group of 7 members, way back in the time, he loved painting this area, and he was hiking or canoeing, portaging, whatever, into Osa Lake, and he met one of the lumber guys from the Spanish Lumber Company, and the guy had said, hey, you know, Jackson, we're going to log in here in a couple of years, and he just went frantic. He said, you can't do that. So he spent a number of years getting all his friends together and political might, I guess, and they stopped it. They did an exchange of land. So the Spanish Lumber Company logged somewhere else, and they protected that lake, which became Ontario Society of Artists Lake, Osa Lake.
So canoeing into Osa Lake, you do once around, then back again. It's a weekend trip. It's a 2-nighter, 1-nighter if you want it. You can actually even do it as a day trip from the campground, which is actually at George Lake right here, the park gate. And yeah, it's got really easy portaging. You go into Freeland, which is a really weedy lake, which is really rare in Killarney because of the acidity of the area. Basically, to put it in a nutshell, quartzite rock is beautiful, but it doesn't act really well as a base for acidity. Limestone does, but quartz does not. So any pollutants and stuff like that, being acid rain, will fall into the lake and actually is causing some problems. They are coming back now. The lakes are coming back now, but it's rare to find the weedy lakes. Where you see the weedy lakes like Freeland, it'll be surrounded by the granite, the pink granite, Canadian Shield granite. And that's a better base for actually acidity. So, but anyway, I'm blabbing on. Blah, blah. You go over a 455 meter portage into Killarney Lake, and you can stay there if you want, or you can hop skip using 2 portages. One in the corner here, 130, which you have to do a beaver dam for, or the 455 straight across. It all depends on water level. If the water level is up, just take the shortcut down here. If not, this is pretty easy portage straight across. Going to Osa Lake, a whole bunch of islands. And right now, you actually, starting this year, you have to book per site number. So when you make a reservation, you get that site. So it's not, it used to be you went to that lake and then you got one of the sites on that lake. That's no longer. Killarney has changed that. So just to note that. And that's a good thing or a bad thing, all depends. There's a big debate about it, but at least you know you're going to get that site. And if someone's on it, well, they shouldn't be on it because it's booked by you. Okay, so Osa Lake. The only disadvantage of Osa Lake, and I'm talking huge advantages, the scenery is just stunning. It's a beautiful, beautiful lake, and Killarney Lake as well. The only disadvantage is good luck getting a reservation for it. It's such an easy route and such a popular route that, yeah, it's hard to book. All right. There I am portaging across with a tump. I'm a Canadian, I have a tump. See that? Reason for the tump for this route as well, lots of portaging. Well, not lots of portaging, just long portages, longest in the park really. So you start at George Lake and go up to Killarney, but then you take this 3,000 plus meter portage into Three Narrows. Three Narrows is actually basically 3 lakes all combined into one. And actually the 3,001 really isn't that bad for steepness. Okay, so it's long, but yeah, it doesn't have a lot of uphill grade. And then you do a really quick lift over back into Three Narrows. Three Narrows is a really nice lake. You're surrounded by both the north range and the south range. So it's kind of cool. You're in the lowland, but you're surrounded by the whole mountain range itself. Just a note though, there are a few camps, cottages in Three Narrows. They've been there for forever. And when the park was formed, they allowed them to stay there because of the historical value. And it doesn't really take away from the trip. You just need to know that they're there. So you don't all of a sudden, well, come on, Kevin, what the? I just did a 3-kilometer portage and there's camps in here. So what you do is you head around, and there's actually good fishing in Three Narrows as well for pike and bass. And then you head back out onto what's called the Pig. Now you could do this route the other way, clockwise, and do the Pig and then the 3-kilometer. I wouldn't do that. The Pig, you're going basically more downhill if you do it counterclockwise. If you're going the other way, clockwise, going up the Pig, it's insane. Like even though it's shorter, it's 1,300 meters to get in there, you're banging your bow of your canoe on the portage ahead of you. It's so steep. Okay, so it's better to go counterclockwise, and then head through Artis, Muriel, Osa, Killarney, and back to George. And it's a nice route. It really is. It's actually my first canoe route I did in Killarney back when I was in grade 11. And yeah, so it's a good route for that. Awesome. Okay, another one is called the Krakenback. So here's a picture. There's the same tree that I was touching when I was just a wee young lad. And so I'm going to show you the route, but why I like this route is that it allows you to go through Osa Lake or Killarney Lake, a bunch of other lakes as well, the centerpiece of Killarney. But also you get to do this hike up and see what you just paddled. So it's called the crack, and it's just a big crack in the mountain that you hike up to. People do this as a day trip from the campground as well, but it's really nice to do a canoe trip and then go up the crack and then look at what you just accomplished. So here's the route. You start off at the campground at Georgian Lake. You go across Freeland again, and then you head off into Killarney, and then you go east into Norway Lake. It's a beautiful lake, actually. And then that's a bit of long portages there. That can be shortened sometimes in higher water, but it's not too bad of a 1,300 meter portage. But this 1,400, yeah, a little steep. Won't lie. Disadvantage of Killarney is you're going through the mountains. Obviously, it's very beautiful, but if you're portaging uphill most of the time. But then you go into Docus Lake, which is a mix between granite and the quartz rock. So yeah, it's a beautiful lake. And then you go either go back to Killarney Lake this way if you want. That's a really steep beginning, or you actually go and go through Freeland. Now, some people portage this. Other people have actually paddled it depending on water level. I've done both. Just make sure you ask the park people like how the waters are between Docus and Freeland. But before you do that and go back, this is where you start your climb up to the crack. It takes about 2 hours to get there, have a look, then come back again. All right, we're almost at the top. Are you ready for this view?
Oh, I'm ready. I am more than ready.
Okay, it's just around the next corner.
Okay.
Okay, so don't look around until we get to the top.
Oh, why not?
Because it's better.
Okay.
All right, don't look back.
I can't look down.
Okay. So yeah, if you're not doing the canoe route, there's a hiking trail right from the road here, and it goes to the crack and back again. But yeah, just do a pal around, cracking back, and back to George Lake. The big loop, okay? So again, Killarney is not that big of a park, but you could do an entire route around it. That's about 7 to 10 days. I would do it in 10 days, but you could do it in 7. So what you do, I've done it in various ways. I've even started in the town of Killarney, went up through here as well, but that's another tale. But the proper big loop is to start again at George Lake, go up through Freeland and go up around the east end of the park through David, then up going through Great Mountain. This area here is a popular place because you can go up to Silver Peak. I'll get to that in a bit. But it's also more lowland and more granite than quartz. But once you get into Great Mountain, which is an amazing lake, it's just all quartz. Then you go up to the north end along some small ponds, and then you go up to this really, really steep portage, like I'm talking like that, into Nelly. But Nelly is just a beautiful lake, and why I like it is there's only 3 sites on this lake, so it's pretty awesome. Then you portage down towards the Georgian Bay area. And this is a long portage, but you're going downhill at this point, so that's good. So you're going uphill here, but you're going downhill here. Hop, skip through some ponds, and then you're into a whole bunch of bays, McGregor Bay, and small inlets and stuff of Georgian Bay. You'll see some cottages, some yachts, but the scenery is just stunning. And yeah, then there's an old portage here that actually the locals use, especially in the wintertime with the snow machines. And you go into Bay Fin, and then you go from Bay Fin into Osa Lake and Killarney Lake, and come back to George. So it's a full big loop, and you get the whole idea of what the park's all about. It's one of my favorite trips, actually, but it takes some time though.
You have to remember that this is a wilderness park, and once you leave one of the access points, you're really on your own. So it's very important to be well prepared, because you might encounter a number of situations.
Maggots in the coffee. They might have been oatmeal.
I'm a great cook and nothing's ever my fault, so it's true.
Well, we thought our tent was going to suffice in the rain, and it's a piece of garbage.
We love the bugs. Oh, you can't find bugs like this anywhere else. Yeah. We went on a long hike up into the ridges today. He broke a toe, actually.
The deer ate everything from our backpack, almost everything, yeah.
It's great to get out and get dirty and enjoy the lakes and the portages, yeah.
What was the portage we just did?
Steep.
How steep was it? Was it worth it? Okay, so this is the east side of the park. So this is the David Lake and Bell Lake. So you can actually access at Bell Lake instead of the campground. And if you make a reservation online, then you don't have to worry about it. You can just arrive here and you have your permit. So you're not really in the mountains per se. You can see them in the distance. So this area is more lowland, more granite, good fishing because of it, good pike and bass. Okay, so Bell Lake, you go into Bell Lake and go into to 3 Mile Lake, and you can also flip through into Balsam and then David Lake and then back again. So why do this? Well, you get to go up Silver Peak. Let me go back to that. Okay, so this is Silver Peak. It's the highest point of the Cloche Mountains. And most people camp at David, and they either start here and hike, or they start here. This is my preference. Go along this portage and hike up here to go up to Silver Peak. If you do this, just make note that it's a full day hike. I'm talking at least 5 hours to do that, even if you're just base camping, because you could do Silver Peak in a day by just parking at Bell Lake and then going from there. But if you're on David Lake, heading up to Silver Peak, full 5 hours at least, okay? And it's a good climb. It's beautiful, beautiful. You can actually see the whole entire Killarney and also Georgian Bay vistas from the top.
After we climbed Silver Peak, I asked the students if they would recommend that other groups would do Silver Peak, because it's quite the hike, and every single one of them said yes. Every single one of them said yes, but they said they need more of a warning that it's like fully a hike, not just a little saunter. So, but they all said they'd recommend it to future students, which I thought was really great.
Well, this is wonderful. This is awesome.
Amazing.
Yeah.
We kind of haven't been looking at the time. We've just taken a little break from the clock and the email, so that's been nice. And then you get to the top and you just, as our friend Meg said, you just feel strong and you feel alive and feel like you've accomplished something. So it's, don't normally feel like that in the day-to-day work life.
If you had to convince someone to try this, what would you say to convince them to do it?
What would I say to convince
I feel like I wouldn't waste my time with anyone that I had to convince to do it. Too much.
Too much. Right.
If you don't want to do this, like, come on.
Time off is too precious. The unfortunate part is that you can't explain to someone these trips, right? You have to bring them out. You have to twist their arm, you have to find a way to get them out here, because then they see it, and then they get it, right? Yeah. You can't explain the magnitude of beauty that is Canada, right, without having someone sit in a forest for 50 minutes and just listen, right? Or paddle water, and the only thing they hear is the drops of water coming off their paddle, right? That's something you can't explain to someone. That's something you have to show them.
Okay, let's move up to the north end of the park. A few years back, they extended the park to make it bigger, and it's kind of cool. I went there with my buddy Andy, and we spent a couple years actually looking for all the old portages. And yeah, so now it's kind of cool. It's all opened up and into that area. So the one, what I really like is called the East Penage. So you start at Penage Lake Marina, which is, I'm talking the north part of the park. So you're going to have to go up to Sudbury and then go west towards Espanola and then head down from there. So you go across Penage, and yeah, you can do a whole series of routes through here. But one of the best is just go into Spider Bay, into Frank Lake, Harry Lake, come back into I forget the name of that lake. I know it's Fox Lake, Peggy Lake, I think. And then you head back through there. So it's a loop. Now, this is not the La Cloche Mountains. Just again, see them in the distance. There's more lowland. Really good fishing, to be quite honest. But yeah, don't expect you know to be hiking through the La Cloche Mountains. You can see them, but they're not. Why go there? It's not as busy at all compared to the south end of the park. Okay, Nelly Lake, amazing. This, if you look at the map of Killarney, this is to the northwest corner. Okay, and this is where the group of 7 actually hung around. A lot of people say they hung around Osa Lake in the town of Killarney. They never did. Actually, it was actually up by Espanola and Whitefish area, and this was one of their favorite routes to do.
A.Y. Jackson was probably the most adventurous of the group of 7. He would take off into the backcountry with all his supplies. These weren't lightweight canoes either. They were heavy canoes, and he wasn't afraid of the challenge of going up and over that next hill, following traditional portages, and then spending days, if not weeks, in the park's interior.
So Nelly Lake, you start off at the lodge here, just before the town of Whitefish, and it's near Espanola. And you head down through Fruit Lake, Cranberry Bay, and into Grace, and that's amazing. If you're going to book a site there, you know, it's amazing. It's amazing place. So that portage though, oh my lord, okay, it's steep. But you go into Grace, and then the portage from Grace to Nelly, again, like that, okay? Nelly, once again, beautiful, absolute beautiful lake. You can actually see 30 feet down. It's clear blue water, okay? It's like a swimming pool. And then there's actually a place called Carmichael Lake, which is actually just a side bay of Nelly Lake. And that's where Frank Carmichael, the group of 7, painted. And yeah, there's a portage here. Thankfully, you're going downhill into Murray. Murray is more of a swampy lake, and then you go down through Harry Creek, which is more swampy as well. But that portage, you'll be thanking me for telling you to go that way, because you might curse going uphill on these, but you do not want to go uphill on this one. Okay, so Nelly Lake. So this is Grace Lake, Grace Lake. So this is actually Frank Carmichael of the group of 7, and famous photograph of him painting Grace Lake. I think I was 24 years old right there, and I was trying to find that rock. And I got tired, so I sat down and looked at it, and I went, oh my lord, I'm actually on the rock. So there's the rock that he sat on. A few years back, some silly people, I'm not sure if they ever caught them, they tossed that rock down the cliff, but a bunch of volunteers came back and put it back again. So cool, good for them. and that's Carmichael Pond. So that's where oh, sorry, I got that all wrong. It's Carmichael Pond, but it was A.Y. Jackson that painted Carmichael Pond of the group of 7. Jackson went more in the interior than actually Carmichael. Carmichael had a cottage actually on Cranberry Bay. So A.Y. Jackson would go in with his canoe mates and go into the interior further. So yeah, I love that painting. And that's exactly where he painted it from. Another route in the northwest corner of the park. It's kind of cool. It's not used that much because it's not easy, and also it depends on the water level. So, but basically what you do is you start off at the lodge here near Whitefish, and you head either up Murray Creek, but I wouldn't do that. It's a lot better, even though there's some portages, to go up to Frood, Cranberry, into Grace, Nelly, and then go out of Nelly down that steep portage into the creek system here. And if the low water is an issue, meaning that there's, that's the park, if there's no water in that area, I would avoid this and then go up through Panage or Bear Lake and all those areas and come back down here. And when you do that, you go into Great Mountain Lake, and from Great Mountain Lake, which is an amazing lake, make sure you spend a night there, you head down through this creek system into Three Narrows. Okay, so I've only done this a couple times, and you really got to make sure there's good water level in this creek, or you're just wasting your time doing this route. But if there's good water level, it makes a really good loop. So basically, go into Three Narrows, and then out of Three Narrows back into actually go back to Bay Fin, but you can go into this area here into McGregor Bay, which is better, and then head back up to Nelly and out again. That's a solid route though. So I would do 7 days, even 10 days if you had it, but 7 days. And it's a solid trip that needs a good tripping skill set, or craziness, we call it. Okay, still up in that area, Bear Lake Loop. So here's Lake Panage. There's Panage Marina. You can actually access the route from there, or you can actually access it from here, from Walker Lake, or on the other end, Panage Lake. There's a lodge there as well. So, you know, simple paddle. It's again totally different than the La Cloche Mountain Range. You're not in it. You can see it. It's more lowland, good fishing. There is some camps. There's even a fishing lodge here as well. What am I saying right here? But yeah, it's a really good route. So you start down going across Bear Lake, hop skip into these small lakes, and then there's that portage, which it took me 1.5 years to find. But now it's open. The park itself is actually maintaining it, and they have campsites here as well. When I first went here, it was sort of a lost canoe route, but it's not anymore. And you just do a full loop. Okay, the Bear Lake Loop. Fantastic trip. Okay, so Great Mountain Lake is here. So Great Mountain Lake, a lot of people come from the south, from the David Lake or Bell Lake access point, or even George Lake access point if they want, and head up into Great Mountain Lake. But that means you're going to do a portage that's over 3 kilometers long, and it's over a hill, over a hill, over a hill. It's not a good portage. So how to get to Great Mountain Lake? I don't know why I'm telling you this, but you start off at either Panage Marine, or actually this lodge here, or Walker's Lake. I would do the Marine here. He's a nice guy. And then you head up through the Bear Lake area, and then head up through these small little ponds, and then you go into Great Mountain Lake. And Great Mountain Lake is in the La Cloche Mountain Range. So you're surrounded by the beautiful quartzite mountains. And look at these portages. They're nothing compared to that really long one going up into it. So it's a lot easier way to get into Great Mountain Lake, and not as popular at all. A lot of people just don't want to drive further north, and you're only talking like another hour, not even, to actually get into this access point. So now we're actually on the western side of Killarney, which is actually by Georgian Bay. And a couple of new routes here that I did last couple of years, the last few years. And you start in the town of Killarney, right? So either you come across here on this portage, which is easy, or actually I would do this portage. It's flat too. I would like this one because right here at this point, there's a face in the cliff that looks like a First Nations person, and it's called Indian Point, and it really does look like a person. So it's kind of cool to check that out. Then you go, oh my Lord, sorry, great, I'm talking too quick. All right, then you go into Fraser Bay. watch the winds, watch the waves. They can get rough. There's a whole bunch of campsites along here, Crown Land campsites. You're not really in the park at this point. You're on Crown Land. Either go around the point, or if it's really windy, you head across that portage. And Bay Fin, there's again a whole bunch of Crown Land campsites along here. And then you hop skip over and then go through here. And there's are a couple of campsites here that are monitored by the park, so you need a permit for, but there's a whole bunch of other Crown Land sites all the way through here. This is a really good 5-day trip. You're going to see boats, you're going to see some yachts, you're going to see some camps, whatever, but the vistas are just amazing. It's Ocean Lake vista of Georgian Bay, McGregor Bay is just stunning. And you can take a side trip up to Nelly Lake here as well. Okay, so there's Nelly Lake, Carmichael Pond, and skip down here as well. So it's a different way to go up to see Nelly. I did this route just 2 years ago. So yeah, it's 2 years ago, because my book Killarney was 30 years old. The town of Killarney itself turned 200 years old, I think. And what better way or reason to go across the park? So what I did to be different, I booked a boat shuttle through Killarney Outfitters, and they do this for you. They'll take you out to Phillip Edward Island, they'll take you out to McGregor Bay, whatever. So what they did is they went from the town of Killarney up through McGregor Bay, and actually the captain there stopped and caught me a lake trout. That was fantastic. So yeah, you go into through Bay Fin. What he did is he actually took me to that little point there. It was a really rough Crown Land site for the first night, so I stayed there. Didn't have to book that because I'm not in the park yet. Then went into Bay Fin here, and then portage into what's called Artist Lake, which is just full of lily pads, to Miro Lake, which is just aqua blue, and then right into Osa Lake, fantastic. And I actually camped at Killarney Lake because I got a site there instead of Osa Lake. And then I headed back through George to the campground, and they had my car waiting for me. So totally different idea. Why do it? Well, you're going straight through the center of the park. So it's fantastic and a good way for it. And it's really a cool boat ride. It's fantastic. All right, so I'm going to show you some routes that you can paddle a canoe on or a kayak. So there's lots of kayak opportunities in Killarney as well. Great blueberries as well. Yum, yum. All right, let's go back up to the north end of the park, up to Penage Lake. Paddle Penage Lake. So there's campsites there now, no portaging. Yes, there's some motorboats and some anglers and some cottages, but it's not busy at all. And it's just a really cool route that actually nobody seems to know too much about. I visited the Browns here years ago. They both passed away, but they were hermits. They lived in Browns Bay, and they stayed there all year round. They've been there since, I don't know when, since they were kids. Knew the history of the place really well, and it's fantastic. They told me stories of Al Capone being there. They told me stories of a German spy during World War II. A whole bunch of really cool stories. Phillip Edward Island. So now we're going to the south end of the park, just near the gatehouse at George Lake. So the park is right here, and you drive down to Chickenish Road to Chickenishing access point, and it's a park access point, so you need a permit for it. You don't need a permit for Phillip Edward Island right now. It's still considered Crown land. That might change in a few years, but right now you just need a permit to park there. Whoops. Okay, so Phillip Edward Island is phenomenal, and it's probably one of the best places to kayak in all of central northern Ontario. And here's what people do. The majority of people go out to the Foxes, and I'll show you that in a sec. But yeah, that's a nice 3-day out the Foxes and then back again. But really, to do it justice, go around the entire island. Yes, the south side of the island is a lot more scenic because it's right on the open water of Georgian Bay. It can get rough though, just watch that. But then to go back and go through here, you're kind of protected more. In fact, the voyageurs would go down through here if the weather was rough. And yeah, just do a full circle. I would say 5 days. I wouldn't do this in 3 days. I know people that have, but do it justice and do it in 5 days. So there's Georgian Bay. And yeah, beautiful, beautiful vistas. Ocean Lake landscape. So yeah, going back to Phillip Edward Island. So you go the Chickanishing access and you head out to the Foxes here. Well, why do that? Well, that's really, really scenic. It's really an easy peasy one, 1 or 2 nights for the weekend. Disadvantage, everybody does it. Okay, so just be forewarned. And also, it's all Crown land, right? So you don't really book any site. It's first come, first serve. Okay, totally different route that a lot of people don't know much about. But before Killarney Park itself, you're going down the road to Killarney. There is a new park, and it's Point Grondin Park, and it's run by the First Nations group there. So this was always here. You could always paddle it, but they now opened it up into a canoe route or a kayak route. Kayak's pretty easy because you only got 2 little mini portages, and then a small portage again out into Georgian Bay, and this is Phillip Edward Island. So you could actually access Phillip Edward Island from this park as well, as opposed to the other. And why do this one? Well, it's kind of cool that they have their own park, and that there's always someone there to talk to about their land and what they feel about their land and how they used to use the land and how they still use the land. And they're really nice people, actually. So I love that area. And yeah, I would say these campsites are the ones you want, and you book them online. They have a website and you book that site, that number, so you get it. These a lot of people don't go into these lakes, which I prefer because it's full of fish actually, and no crowds whatsoever. But why it's good to be here is that you can hop skip out to the bay for a bit and come back again. They do have some campsites out in the bay as well for kayakers. And also there's a hiking trail that circles here. So if you actually camp here, you can hook up to the hiking trail for the day and do a hike. I also included a whole bunch of hiking trails in Killarney. And because we're talking about paddle routes, I'm not going to go over all of them, but just to show you how many there are, so many day hikes. You could literally go to the campground at George Lake, stay there for a week in your RV if you want, and then do a hike every single day for that whole week. You also could do a lengthy route called the Silhouette Loop. It goes around the Clash Mountains. It's about 100 kilometers. I would do it in 7 to 8 days. Some people take it quicker than that. I wouldn't. It's a rugged trail though, but it's a very, very scenic trail. And yeah, tons of places to go to, especially for the day. Okay, but we're talking about paddling routes, not hiking routes. Right, continue on, Kevin. Winter as well. Sorry, I also put a winter section in the book about what Killarney is like in the winter. And yeah, we're not going to talk about that because these are paddling routes, but I just wanted to mention that part, that it's a phenomenal place in the winter as well.
I was in Killarney in the wintertime, and we went to attempt to go up Silver Peak. Didn't make it, too much snow. Great adventure though, but this is where we camped, on the portage into Clear Silver. And we camped out in the swamp. That's what you do in the wintertime because there's lots of area to put a big huge canvas tent with a wood stove and lots of dead wood for burning. It's kind of cool to be in the same spot now and just look at it as a bug infested swamp. A lot easier walking in the summertime than the winter. And that came in perspective today where I was complaining about the portaging, but then recognize this portage. Oh yeah, the last time I was here, I was pulling a freight toboggan and really having a hard time. So, pretty easy today.
All right, let's go to the French River. So the French River is a very historic river. It begins on the west side of Lake Nipissing, and it flows all the way down to Georgian Bay, and probably about a half a day paddle from there, you can get to Philip Edward Island, and then even to Killarney from there. So that's how close that park is. All right, let's look at this place. So where it is, so there's Killarney, and here's the French River. Okay, let's look at some of the trips. One of my favorites is called the 18-mile island loop. So this is the upper part of the French River. A lot of people, they want to go down to the lower part, and I get it. You paddle out to Georgian Bay, Ocean Lake Vista is fantastic, but it's busy. It's a busy place, the lower end. You got lots of boats and yachts and stuff like that. If you do the upper, it's a different environment. Yes, we got some cabins and some boats along the French River here as well, but to do a loop in this area is just phenomenal. So if you think where it is, Wolseley Bay, you start at Wolseley Bay, or actually a Pine Cove Lodge as well. I usually start from there. If you go east from there, just about half a day paddle up, you get to Lake Nipissing. Okay, so that's kind of where you're starting, and you think about it. Here's the highway, Highway 69, and yeah, so you're not in the lower delta at all. So you can also start down here, by the way, sorry, at, what's it called? Loons Landing. Yeah, Loons Landing. That's a lovely place, actually. Really good owners that own that place. All right, rounding on. So start from here, go down through a series of rapids that are described here. You can portage around every single rapid. So you're not forced to go and do the rapids. Easy portages as well. And water level fluctuates on the French. So if it's high water, it might be easier to run the rapids, or it might be more difficult. It all depends, right? But yeah, in normal water levels, I think you can run majority of them if you're moderately skilled. And to think about it, one of the biggest ones is Blue Chute. And that's, if you ever watch Bill Mason's videos, and there's an opening scene of him going down to some huge troughs of water down the rapids. That's on the French. It's the Blue Chute. That's where he filmed that. So anyway, blabbing. So going through there, very, very scenic. One thing you could do, and what I've done a lot, is I've done that. I've come down to these rapids and then camp there for 2 or 3 days and then come back again and not do this whole loop. So that's a possibility too. But to do the 18-mile island loop, you continue on down this stretch of rapid, or the stretch of river. So this is the French River Park itself. So to get a reservation for this area at this point in time, they're in zones. So when you go to their website, each section of the river is in a different zone. So you actually book a site in one of those zones. For example, here. So one of those sites you can take. I generally don't see the French River as busy as Killarney. Okay. Yes, a lot of people paddle it, but I've never had a problem getting a site. So then you go up the French River's North Channel. So you're going up the current, not a huge issue. There's a couple of swifts you have to deal with, and a couple of short liftovers, but this is Crown land. So it's not part of the park. There's campsites and stuff like that, but there's first come, first serve, sort of Crown land idea. This whole loop takes about 5 days. I would do it in 5 days, 4 nights, or longer. I wouldn't try to do it any shorter. Okay, it's a great trip. So this is on the upper as well. This is a great trip. I don't think anybody does this trip, but you start at Restore Provincial Park, great campground, and you go down the Restore River, and then you go into the French River. So you're now in the French River Provincial Park. You go up these rapids, portaging around the rapids, and then you get into the first section of the French River as it empties out of Lake Nipissing. So you paddle along there. There's a whole bunch of campsites. This is my favorite area around here. Nobody really goes in there. And yeah, you're going to see lodges, fishing lodges, boats and stuff like that. But again, that's the French River. Why I like the French is the scenery and the sense of history of the French, because everybody that made Canada went down the French River. The First Nations people, the explorers, the Jesuits, the fur traders, whichever, like they all went down the French. It was like the highway at the time. And then right at Lake Nipissing, hopefully the weather isn't too bad for you there. It can get pretty windy at this point. You go up this this creek, the Shoal Creek, and there might be some water issues in August. So, you know, I wouldn't do this in low water maybe, but it is possible. And this is all Crown land, right? So there's a lake here and a lake here you can camp at, and a couple of portages that are somewhat maintained. Restore Provincial Park has maintained it and then has not maintained it. They go back and forth, but lately I've heard that they're actually maintaining this route. All right, so then that's a loop you could do in a nice 5-day trip, maybe 4-day, and it's beautiful. It's a great trip. Docus Island. So if you look at the reserve itself, you just paddle around it. And I would paddle around counterclockwise as opposed to clockwise. The reason why is that these are easy to portage up over these rapids here, but there's a strong current down through here, right? So you don't see that on the map, but I wouldn't want to paddle up that. I'd rather paddle down, okay? There's a couple portages along here as well. Pretty easy, nice scenery, really good 3-day trip. I would extend it, spend some time here. These are, the campsites are in the provincial, wait a minute. Oh. These campsites are in the provincial park, so you have to reserve your zone, okay? All right. Lovely area, very scenic. And yes, there are Massasauga rattlesnakes on the French River. And I'd be more worried about your dog getting bit than you. It's the only poisonous snake we have in Ontario. They're very rare. They're an endangered species. So it's great when you see one. So yeah, but yeah, it's not to worry too much about that. Going out to the Delta on the French, lower French, yeah, there is a huge advantage going out to Georgian Bay. Like, look at that scenery, just amazing, right? So let's look at some of those routes. So the main access point is the Hartley Bay Marina, and you park there, you pay for your parking, and you can even get your park permit there as well, or get it online. Once again, these are zones, so you would get a zone. So one of these campsites you could take. It's not per site, just like Killarney has changed per site, where the French hasn't done that yet. Okay, so you head out through Wanapitei Bay, and I call this one the figure 8 loop. So basically you do a figure 8, you go like that, okay? There used to be a tramway here, a wooden tramway that you could cross, but that's no longer there. So it's just a lift over and a portage. So that changed the last couple of years. Really good trip. The only disadvantage is that you could get into some wind issues out in Georgian Bay or not. It's just a really nice route. This is a nice 3-day, maybe 5-day if you want to extend it. All right. The other one is called the Voyager's Old Voyager Channel. So you start at Hartley Bay, but instead of from Wanapitei Bay, instead of coming down here, you head way out here to what's called the Western Channel, the far Western Channel of the French River. And then you take the Old Voyager Channel, which the Old Voyager canoes would come down in that area, head across some of these liftovers or out to the bay if the weather is good. And then you come back through this area. So it's a big loop. That's a 5-day trip for sure. Especially you're going to want to spend some time out in Georgian Bay and soaking in the sun and listening to the gulls and that sort of thing. All right. All right. The other one on the lower French is the French Pickerel River Loop. And I don't think a lot of people do this. There could be some water issues here. So check with the marina to see if the water level is okay in there. And yeah, so what you do, you could actually do the whole full loop down the Voyager Channel or actually take one of these channels. But what you do is you come back up the Pickerel River. And it's all sort of full of big marshy area, full of grass along here. And really good fishing too. So only a couple liftovers and a couple portages. But in a drought, I maybe would not do that section. Okay, I'm going to show you this one here, the last one. We're going back up the Upper French again, but the reason why I want to show you this one is this is the last one I did when I was working on the book. My partner Christine and I went on this route in the summer. And what was really good about it is that because of COVID, a lot of these camps are owned by American camps, and great camps. So my dad and I used to go fishing these fishing camps long ago. But because of COVID, they couldn't come into the country. Nobody was there. It was like a ghost town. We actually went and did this route. I'll show you. We basically started at Docus, the marina. There's also a marina in this bay here as well. You can start at too, and head back and went through here and all these little campsites. We had our choice. This is in August. We had our choice of any of those sites. Nobody was out camping. Nobody was out canoeing. No, we saw one motorboat. It was insane, and yeah, it was great. And then we went out to what's called Burnt Island. There's a Green Island there as well. There were supposed to be native paintings here, but we didn't see them. But we did see these. Whoa, my Lord! Don't go back to that. We did see these, and they were awesome. So we ran out and camped with the breeze of Lake Nipissing blowing on our site. It was fantastic, and we headed back into full loop. And that was we went out for 5 days, but you could do that on a weekend. Okay, big water, but no portages. Awesome.
Positive attitude hat on.
This is one spoiled dog. You don't see Angel sitting on my lap.
Another luxury vacation rainstorm.
It hasn't let up at all.
No, it hasn't. It's been raining hard for what? I'm gonna say 6 hours now, at least 6 hours.
It's good wine.
Good scotch.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Dan, for the tarp. Custom sewing. A lot of people have been asking about this tarp. He makes some great stuff. He's also a really good guy. And I'm loving you right now, Dan. Custom sewing.
The tarp was peeing.
This is what I call mental fortitude. I think you chose the right time to go.
Yeah. I can't even have like a 5-minute break to go to the bathroom. Honest to God. Did you make me a drink while I was gone?
Kevin, I'm so cold. I got my sweater on and you put this little blanket over me. I look like a superhero, but I want to go home. I want to go home.
Beautiful campsites. Beautiful campsites. Okay. Well, that's my presentation. I hope to see you next year in person. I prefer that, but virtual is pretty good. And hope you enjoyed the presentation. Here are my sponsors for this year. They're helping me give these presentations all over North America and the UK. And I'd like to thank them for that. And I got to say, they're all friends of mine. I've been doing this for years, and they're just friends of mine that say, hey, Kevin, you got to keep presenting and keep these people going out, because if we don't go out paddling these routes, then we're not going to be able to save wilderness once it needs to be saved. We have to reconnect everybody back to nature, and going on a canoe trip, especially in Killarney, the French River, is probably the best thing you can do. Thank you very much. Awesomeness.
How you making out?
Good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You ready to go?
We're ready to go.
Yeah?
Yeah.